Hello everyone, thought it was time for a bit of an update as I haven't done one in a while. I haven't got a vast amount to show you, I'm afraid, but I do have a fair amount to talk about as always, so not sure what I'll do about this. I'll probably put some figures out, just for you to look at and listen, and listen to me chat later on. But in the meantime, the painting progress I have made, I have been painting a fair amount of 15mm stuff for the Russian Civil War, because I hadn't done any of that in a while, just the whim took me. So I've just finished recently these Red Cavalry, the Peter Pig figures. Not much else to say about them really, other than a little bit of a shock to the system recently. These things happen, that the rules that I use are, as you may recall from a game I sort of put a back rep up for a long time ago now, is like an amalgamation of a game called Red Actions, which was available from a website called The Perfect Captain, with black powder. So it's sort of, rules of my own concoction, as it were. But I noticed that The Perfect Captain, the last time I went to it, has actually taken down their website. I mean, all credit to them. It was up for 15-20 years probably, and they just decided the time had come to take it down. And that of course means that not only Red Actions but all their other rules, which were free to download, and some of them are actually very good indeed, aren't available to the public anymore, other than they have got a Facebook page, I think, where you can access some of them. But luckily for me, I had, I had downloaded all their cards and rule sheets and tables and everything a long time ago, so I do have it. And I actually was contacted by one of my viewers a few months ago now. I think his name was David Tuck, and he's preparing a article for War Games Illustrated, I believe, if I remember correctly. And he asked me how he could get hold of the Red Action, so I was able to send him some of everything that I had. So keep an eye out in War Games Illustrated, because there may well be an article by him coming up in the not too distant future. But yeah, it's one of those sort of permanent worries with me, is that ranges go out of business, or things just disappear from the web. And it's one of the reasons why I do hoard and collect, and have built up such a massive lead mountain over the years. But there's been a couple of other things that have disappeared recently, and sort of added to my anxiety. A classic one is Krantara. Graham at Krantara has retired, and he's passed the business on to Caliver Books, and I needed to replenish my figures recently for the Jacobite Rebellion, and went to Krantara's website to put an order in, and found that he retired and handed the business over back in May. So now I've put an order in with Caliver Books at the end of October, and they wouldn't have got my vote, I have to confess. For someone to pass the business on, I've had lots of times in the past where Caliver have been really slow at sort of fulfilling orders and things, and sending purchases to you. and this has turned out to be no exception. I mean, I put the purchase in late October, and we're late November now, and apart from acknowledgement of my purchase, I haven't had anything back from them. And I've had that issue in the past, and it seems to be that they are, they give their main priority to their eBay shop, because their performance is monitored more. And if you buy anything else from them, other than through their eBay shop, then you pay the price of having to wait. So I'm not quite sure what to do about that now, because I've got this sort of forever project of trying to wargame the 1745 Jacobite rebellion, and it was going to take years to build up 2 armies, and I don't like to change range, but I think I'm probably going to do that. But that's another case in point that my next preference would be for front rank, and of course they did the same thing some time ago now as well, and handed their business over to Gripping Beast, and I would have a lot more confidence in Gripping Beast, but they still haven't started selling front rank figures, because there's been some issue with the legal kind of negotiations and so on. So they're going to start selling them as soon as possible, but for the time being, front rank figures aren't available either. So that's the kind of thing that it just adds to my, whenever I do see figures available, I just buy them and keep them for years. It's one of the reasons I do it. But anyway, that's long enough looking at these 50mm red cavalry, so I'll just show you some other models I've painted for the Russian Civil War as well. Okay, next up we have 3 Peter Pig models. FT17 Renault tanks. Apologies if the camera gets knocked every now and again. It's just been visited by my next door neighbour's cat. So I thought I could hear him knocking on the back door. He rattles the door, and it's quite cold out there, so I thought I'd let him in. He could warm up, but he's a bit of a nuisance. Yeah, so I realised recently that the way I wargame the Russian Civil War isn't at all historically accurate. I've got a photograph, not a photograph, an illustration to show you of these 3 tanks. Sorry, cat's being a nuisance. Of this type of tank, I should say, from an Osprey book, and there were actually they were taken to Odessa by the French during the the intervention, and there were only actually 2 of them, and I've got 3 painted up, and when the French left they were passed on to General Wrangel, and yeah, I haven't got a clue why I bought 3, but anyway, there they are. But the other thing I do with the Russian Civil War is I just paint anything that comes to my fancy, and it is an interesting period, but there's no way you should really historically accurately mix and match all these different things. So I'm going to have them in war games, and they're going to be part of my game, even though they probably I'm going to have them with, I don't know, Czech Legion or those red cavalry I've just shown you and so on. But yeah, they're okay the way they turned out. They're nice models. I found it difficult to paint the roundels, but they were basically in the original French kind of camouflage scheme, and then General Wrangel added his sort of Imperial Russian roundels to them. So that's another issue anyway. Okay, on to the, the next thing. So he's decided to sit on my chair. I went out to get something else, and I'm not allowed to sit down now, but I will try not to disturb him. I'm never sure when to allow him in and that, but I think his owner's out at the moment. So I'll let him warm up in here for a while. Anyway, on to the next thing. Okay, next up we have 3D printed model. This is of a Russian church, so this would be ideal for quite a number of periods. Obviously the Russian Civil War. You can see it didn't print up terribly well. I mean, especially there's a big flaw in it. But you know, I was quite happy with it, and it's painted up quite well, even if it hasn't printed up quite well. Yeah, so the Russian Civil War, Napoleonic period, the Second World War, whatever you want really, sort of typical Russian church. And there's another area there warped. You know, it'll look alright on the battlefield. Then there's another couple of 3D prints. Okay, so this is another 3D print. Again, not a perfect print, there's a few warps and things in it, but you know, it'll do on the battlefield. This is what's called a Karelian style house. So again, suitable for the Russian Civil War. Karelia is sort of the area between what is now St. Petersburg and Finland, sort of marshy area that was disputed between Finland and Russia. So this is what I'm saying about how I'm tending to kind of muddle everything in together for my Russian Civil War, because those FT17 tanks would have been in the southern Russia rather than northern Russia. But again, you know, it's just a matter of lacking historical reality really, but there's no reason they're contemporary in terms of time period. Yeah, so that's one, and then I've got one other Karelian house as well. Okay, this is the other Karelian style house. Again, same thing. My printing methods have improved a lot, so I could probably do a much better job of printing this now, but it has got a few bends and warps in that as well. But pretty happy with the way that turned out. So again, suitable for kind of northern Russia, Second World War, Russian Civil War. That's about it really. You couldn't really, I don't think you would, these style of houses were around in the Napoleonic period. Maybe they were, but that is all the excuse me, that is all the painting I've got to show you. So now I'm going to go off on a big waffle. Have to do this on my knees because the cat is still occupying my chair, but anyway, let's set something up and show you a few other things. Right then, before I forget, this is an illustration of that Renault FT17 tank from 1920. So that's how I've tried to reproduce it there, and that's in a book, an Osprey book, New Vanguard, called Armoured Units of the Russian Civil War. So that takes me on to a few book purchases that I've made recently. The one that's relevant to the Russian Civil War is that this came out this year sometime, I think around May, so it's quite an interesting addition to their collection for me. The army is in southern Russia, 1918 to 19. Usual story. The uniforms weren't particularly striking. lots of kind of khakis and greys and so on. So not particularly striking, but it's the different troop types, such as here the Greek Expeditionary Corps and so on. The amount that you can sort of mix and match with the Russian Civil War, but as I say, not necessarily sort of historically accurate to put these together with something that might have intervened up in the north, such as the British or something, or the Japanese in Siberia, or the Czech Legion. But anyway, see, I find it an interesting period. Now, I've been buying a lot of books from the naval and military press recently, simply because they send you offers, if there's £4 or £5 for a book that's been sort of discontinued and so on, and I often can't resist it. So I got this one, which is on the Russian Civil War, Churchill's Secret War with Lenin. It's a bit of a sensationalist kind of title, but this looks like it's going to be a really interesting read, but obviously mainly about the British involvement in northern Russia after the First World War. All black and white photos, but there's some interesting ones in here. I did notice earlier, apart from the maps as well, I did notice an interesting one earlier. There's a sort of typical kind of church there, so again similar to that 3D print. Yeah, I probably won't be able to find it offhand, but lots of pictures of ships and planes and so on. But there was one of a plane that had been it was in the sort of Bolshevik colours. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find it now, but I found that quite interesting, because you don't see many depictions of the sort of communist side for their planes. Anyway, I'm going to put other books. So mainly, things I've been buying have been naval related. I got this one because it shows a lot of the, what was that? Was that the cat maybe? It shows a lot of the ships that fought during the Russo-Japanese War that were then taken into the Japanese Navy. Not this one, this is the Shikishima, which was featured in the Battle of the Yellow Sea report that I showed earlier in the year. Yeah, again, I'm probably not going to be able to find them in a hurry. But look at that! Look at this one. This is the Yashima, I think. And it's, yeah, the Yashima, and that is the River Tyne. So that is it, because it was a British built ship. So really curious kind of juxtaposition of Oriental and Northern British there. Anyway, well, I'm not really even meant to be telling you much about these books, other than just showing you that what I really wanted to do was have a little bit of a ramble. So the first thing I wanted to do was apologise to anyone who I had failed to reply to their comment. Now, on occasion I do deliberately delete people's comments if they're kind of inappropriate, or they're kind of facetious and I just can't find a way of replying to them. I do sometimes, not very often, delete a comment, or even mute the commenter if it's something I find objectionable. But I have been unable recently to reply to a lot of comments, and I apologise for that. And that's simply because YouTube seemed to make it impossible to do so. I don't know why it happens. I get an email saying I've had the comment and I can read the comment, but when you actually go to YouTube, the comment doesn't appear in the comments below the videos. And there have been some that I felt quite guilty, really, because they've been quite articulate, and people have put time into commenting, and there's no way I can reply to them. So I'm very sorry about that. I even recently also had 3 comments that appeared in my in my page where of comments that I hadn't replied to, and one of them was 4 years old, and there was the most recent one was 9 years old, and that was one from no, sorry, not 9 months old, and that was one from Bacchus, who's a frequent commenter, contributes to my YouTube channel. The other 2 were names that I didn't recognise, but that's the sort of thing that happens. People will comment, and if I don't reply, they might not visit the YouTube channel again. So this is another naval book that I purchased. Obviously, Elimination of the German Surface Warships in World War One. What's next? Yeah, I didn't go to Salute this year, you may have realised, and so that's one of the reasons why you didn't see me there, is I wasn't there. I took the decision in the end that it was about the time I was thinking of buying my ticket. It was about the time that they started making a kind of campaign for people to get their boosters, and my booster would have been due the weekend of Salute. So I thought it was particularly bad timing for me, because I would have been at the my lowest point of immunity, and I would have been going into a fairly crowded area. I know it was very, as it turned out, it was very spacious in there, and it was reassuring that they took they required COVID passports and so on before that. But all the same, I didn't think it was worth going. I would much rather go to Salute in the spring anyway, rather when the weather's nice and pleasant, rather than going up to London in sort of murkier weather. And on top of that, I go nowadays I'd rather than go for the day, which has turned into a calamity sometimes because the trains from Plymouth are so unreliable. I usually go and spend a few days up there, and that would have meant that I would have been wandering around London, uncomfortable about going into crowded places and wandering around cold and wet streets possibly. So, and also it's coming up to the anniversary of my mother's death now. It's been a year, just under a year ago, that she passed away, and it would have been fairly melancholy because I still haven't been back to her grave yet. But I would have found that all the accumulation of all those things, I probably would have found a little bit depressing. So I thought it was better to give it a miss this year. This book, Siege of Tsingtao. The Tsingtao. This is mainly about the Japanese siege of the port of Tsingtao in China, but Tsingtao was actually the home port of Graf Spey's Pacific Squadron. So it has got a sort of naval bearing. One thing I did do though this year was I did take myself to the cinema, because I've been dying to see Dune, the film Dune, and Plymouth has one of these. There aren't that many in the country, but it has a cinema that has 4D effects, so the chairs shake and so on, and you get water coming down from the ceiling, and uh, wind passing your ears and all that kind of thing. So I thought Dune would have been absolutely perfect, film to go and see. And it was. But I still think this might be a bit controversial, but I still think I prefer the David Lynch version of the film. Um, and that was because there are a lot of nuances, and there's a lot going on in the book, like lore and so on, that you have to pick up or be aware of. And I don't think this Villeneuve's film, the modern film, was so good at passing that on to the audience. In David Lynch's film, a lot of Paul Atreides' thoughts are kind of vocalized, so you can hear his thoughts, and that allows the film to kind of explain a lot of what's going on, whereas that wasn't the case with the Villeneuve film. So it really concentrated on the special effects and the sort of the dramatic landscapes and so on, and that was done really well, and it was a perfect film for that kind of cinema. But it was a little bit disappointing as well that it's impossible to cover the book in a short period of time, and they've chosen to split the book into parts, and so it ends at a very kind of anticlimactic part of the story, really. So it was disappointing from that point of view as well. And the other incredible thing was, because of, I wanted to try and avoid crowds, I I chose to go in the middle of the week on a Wednesday, and also during the middle of the day. And when I booked the ticket, there were only four other seats booked in the whole auditorium. But actually, when I went there, those other four people didn't turn up. So I was literally the only person in the cinema. Had it entirely to myself. I was sat there, feeling a bit embarrassed really that they'd gone to all this effort. That all the seats were shaking, everything. The effects took place right away around the entire cinema, and it was all put on for my benefit. So I'm not quite sure what they would have done if I hadn't been there. Whether they would just not run the screening. But no one sort of said to me, "I'm sorry, this isn't commercially viable. We're going to have to ask you to come back on another occasion." So I had the entire viewing to myself, a private viewing of the film. Um, yeah, I mean that's about it really. I've already talked about my anxieties about not being able to get hold of things. One of this is a book, by the way. Obviously, what it is, it's about the defence of the Dardanelles, and I saw this on offer from Naval and Military Press and thought I'd buy this because what's it called, Broadside, who brought out their latest set of 3D printed STL files for this campaign. So I thought I would get hold of that. The only other thing, instead of going to Salute, I decided I would spend some money on an Amiga 1200 off of eBay, and that has been an absolute nightmare. The seller is a complete rogue, and was refusing to send it to me until the money was in his account, which contravenes eBay policy because they allow you a month in which you can find fault with your purchase or anything if you're unhappy with the purchase, to get your money back. So he was wrong to do that. But when he finally did send, he sent part of my purchase to me, and that part wasn't working, even though he described it as being in perfect working condition. So it's been an absolute nightmare and really annoying. But hopefully I'll get my money back through eBay's guarantee eventually. And that is all of my news. So sorry it was a little bit disorganised. The cat has now left the chair and gone somewhere else, so he's probably up to mischief somewhere. I'll have to go and sort out where he is. Thanks very much for watching, everyone, and see you on the next video. Bye for now.